Well, on that note, I know you have some good news related to pensions.
I
This is some
do.
good union news, so take it away.
Yeah. So we're gonna do the usual good cop, bad cop, where I'm the good cop and Jen comes in as a bad cop. But so last week, the American Rescue Plan Act passed, which has triggered a range of actions from across the political spectrum. Some progressives are fawning and calling this the second coming of FDR and the first coming of social democracy in America. And certain aspects of the bill are gobbling up all the attention, like the $1,400 stimulus checks, the child tax credits, and the absence of a minimum wage hike. And the president and vice president are right now going on a tour to promote all the benefits.
President Joe Biden stopped by a flooring company in Chester, Pennsylvania on Tuesday to personally promote his $1.9 trillion stimulus package as part of an all-out push by his team to sell his massive plan aimed at revving up the U.S. economy.
You should be aware more help is on the way for real.
Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, First Lady Jill Biden, and others are visiting various states and appearing on television as part of what the White House is calling the Help Is Here tour, aimed to coincide with Americans receiving their $1,400 stimulus checks as part of the bill.
So President Biden, you'll remember a while back, he said, help is on the way. And then he signed that American Rescue Plan, so I would say, help is here. Help is here. Help is here.
But something is in there that isn't getting the attention it deserves and represents a huge victory for working people. Of the $1.9 trillion in the bill, $83 billion goes towards saving the pensions of over 1 million workers. The U.S. Treasury Department will rescue the Central States Pension Fund in the form of grants that don't have to be repaid. Pensioners will get 100% of their earned benefits. 400,000 of these workers are Teamsters, and they are ecstatic at this victory. The Central States Pension Fund, which covers not only Teamsters but workers in other sectors like construction and hospitality, was in crisis well before COVID due to a variety of compounding factors. I recently spoke with Ken Paff about these developments. Ken is the national organizer of Teamsters for a Democratic Union, a rank-and-file reform movement within the Teamsters Union, and has been very active in the fight to save pensions. Here's what Ken had to say about the origins of this pension crisis.
Well, so many funds got into this position when you with union busting, deunionization, you don't have enough active workers contributing into your plan. And you start having more retirees than actives. The employer pays in on the actives. It would be as if we didn't have any people working anymore in the United States and we still had to pay Social Security. And in some countries like Japan with a baby bust, that's going to be a problem. Well, what if in union busting, that problem is greatly exaggerated? And in the Central States Plan, it was unfortunately greatly exacerbated, self-inflicted by the Teamsters leadership and the Hoppe administration. Short-sighted political moves, accommodation to the largest employer, the largest, most profitable transport corporation in the world, United Parcel Service, was allowed to leave the pension plan on December 31, 2007. What happened a few months later? They said, don't worry, because UPS is leaving the fund, but they have to give us the withdrawal liability of $6 billion. It's super duper, a big present here on New Year's Eve. Within months, the fund had lost $11 billion when Wall Street crashed the economy in 2008. So now you had deunionization and failure to bring members into the plan. You had pulling out the giant profitable employer that was really necessary in the plan. And you had Wall Street crashing the economy. At that point, the fate of the Central States Fund was set, as it will go bankrupt. And it's gone down since then. It's now 5 years from bankruptcy.
So with the pension fund already weakened, Congress went in for the kill. In December 2014, with no public hearings or debate, in the middle of the night, slipped in as part of an omnibus appropriations bill, Congress passed the Multi-Employer Pension Reform Act. This bill allowed for dramatic pension cuts, up to 60% of benefits for retirees enrolled in plans that were in financial trouble.
It's difficult to imagine the collective knots in these stomachs, finding out by letters sent by the Central States Pension Fund that its financial emergency is being passed on to them. Retired trucker Dennis Germain is in disbelief.
And they said that if we give up our pay raises, the money gain we'd be better off putting it in the pension fund.
Billy Scott drove a car hauler for 27 years.
You work all your life and you base your retirement on what they tell you you're going to get. So I set up my life to survive on what they told me I was going to get. Now they're going to cut me 52%. I'll lose my car, lose my health care.
We'll lose our homes, our cars, our medical. It's going to get down to where, will you buy food or will you buy your needed prescriptions? It's going to devastate everybody.
Central States Pension Fund's going broke. Its website saying it's asked Congress for permission to execute a pension rescue after its lobbyists were able to get Congress to exempt it from normal pension rules, preventing this kind of cutting. The local Teamsters are trying to get Congress to overturn a last-minute 2014 vote.
I'm trying to make arrangements so that come July, the bottom doesn't fall out.
Yeah, I could go back to work, I guess, for what, being a greeter at Walmart?
So let's take a step back and talk about what pensions are and what the average one looks like. Pensions are workers' deferred pay. They worked for them. They put away money and paid into them already. They are not a handout. On average, the amount is about $15,000 per beneficiary. This is a modest benefit, some level of security after a life of hard work. But with the passage of the Act in 2014, Teamsters retirees sprung into action. And as Ken Paff puts it, it was a movement that the Teamsters led to defend their pensions that secured this victory in the latest stimulus bill.
At that point, when it became very clear where it was headed, in 2013, we launched this pension movement through TDU. And it pretty quickly grew up and became independent of TDU. It took on its own life. The pension movement across the country, I mean, groups would spring up in South Texas and in Atlanta and in Minnesota and Kansas City and Detroit, all across the Midwest and the South, everywhere. There were pension committees, and they organized into the National United Committee to Protect Pensions. And that movement went on all these years since then. And, you know, to be honest, did I think they were going to win 100% with no reductions? Well, that was our goal, but let's put it this way. We kind of expected this is going to end up with some compromise.
Right.
And they were talking to senators like Grassley, and he was the lead Republican. He's going to help you. He was actually the person who made the motion this month in the Senate to defeat this bill. That amendment was voted down in the middle of the night by a vote of 49 to 50 against, by a party line vote. So right then, right before this bill passed, they tried to take out this clause. And they'll probably try to chip away with it in the future, but I think they're not going to be able to do it. So it was really a grassroots movement that became a marathon that stuck with it all that time. And of course, we had allies. And as I say, eventually Teamsters leadership became an ally. Early on, the machinists were a good ally. We have to give credit to our friends, the Pension Rights Center, a wonderful nonprofit group in Washington, D.C. that was with us from day one and that enlisted allies like the AARP. So we had allies, and but really the credit goes to the pensionistas that really made it happen. In 2017, we finally got a bill introduced by Bernie Sanders called COPPA, Keep Our Pension Promises Act. And it was the solution we wanted. Within a year, it was replaced by another bill, and really the lead person was Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, and that was the Butch-Lewis Act. And we're proud that the bill that just passed and was signed into law by President Biden, the Butch-Lewis Act, is named after one of our TDU leaders, Butch Lewis, who was on our TDU International Steering Committee, was a leader in Local 100 in Cincinnati. And he was a real stalwart in the pension movement. And up to the very day he died, he was working hard to pass this bill. And his widow, Rita Lewis, continued on in this fight, spoke at many rallies and so on. And it's people like him, it's named after him, but there were a lot of people like that who made it happen.
This movement encompassed cities all around the country, and it was thanks to their tireless activism that this issue was kept alive in the public consciousness and the halls of power. But we aren't out of the woods yet on pensions. Despite how significant this victory is, it is still in many ways a short-term solution. Defined benefit pensions are quickly becoming a thing of the past for private sector workers, with less than 15% receiving them today. These pensions guarantee workers a lifetime benefit based on their salary and years of service. Employers increasingly use defined contribution plans like 401ks, which put workers in the precarious position of depending on a volatile stock market to keep their benefits safe. Millennials often joke that retirement and pensions won't exist when we need them, except it's not really a joke. It's a pretty realistic assessment of the balance of forces. And this is certainly the future the ruling class wants to bring into being, but it doesn't have to be this way. We can create a sustainable pension system that gives all workers a dignified and secure retirement. This is what Ken Paff had to say about that.
And this is an issue that's been raised by Bernie Sanders and others, that our Social Security is inadequate. I mean, it's a great plan, and it's progressive, and it really helps eliminate old age poverty, but it needs to be updated, and it needs to be expanded, and it needs to be increased. This rich country that can produce so many multi-billionaires, we can't even increase pensions.
Mm-hmm.
And we need not a crazy quilt of pensions here and there. What happens to the danger of our system is, if you have a good union pension, another employer says, well, why should they have a pension? You don't. And they turn workers against workers. Public workers often have taken lower wages. You're a teacher. I don't think you're going to ever be a billionaire being a teacher. And what's happened as public workers start to win better pensions, people start to resent them. Right. That's our tax dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a pension. They do. So whenever you have a benefit that's too skimpy, the labor movement has to fight to expand it for pensions for all.
Again, good old Bernie Sanders has provided political leadership on this front and has offered actual legislation that could serve as a model. Before the Butch-Lewis Act, when Teamster retirees were organizing years ago to stop the cuts, they rallied around Bernie's Keep Our Our Pension Promises Act, or COPA.
As many of you know, Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur and I have introduced legislation that would prevent the retirement benefits of over 1.5 million workers and retirees from being cut by repealing the anti-pension rider in last year's appropriations bill. It establishes an emergency fund within the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation to make sure that multi-employer pension plans can continue to provide every pension benefit owed to every eligible American for decades to come. And we pay for this program by eliminating 2 tax loopholes that impact the wealthiest people in this country. So let me just conclude by thanking you for coming here to D.C. today, for thanking you for standing up not just for yourselves, but for over 1 million workers and retirees all over this country. Bottom line is, if people cannot have faith in government, that government is going to keep their word, then what is our entire democracy about? All right?
Time and time again, the federal government always finds the money to bail out hedge funds and Wall Street and corporate welfare. It is the collective efforts of millions of workers that creates the profits at corporate giants like UPS, Amazon, Walmart, and so many like them. These profits should be taxed to make sure these same workers can retire in dignity. And Jen, I don't know, do you expect a pension?
I don't have. Well, I was going to ask you, do you have a pension?
I do, yes. So through my union, we are part of the state pension system. But even, I would say even people in unions my age, I think there's a sense that like by the time we get there, they might have gone away with it. Or, I mean, again, look what happened with the Central States Fund. It was running out of money. If Congress did not step in, again, people were facing literally 60% cuts in their pension. And the average one is $15,000 a year. So a 60% cut to that. So, again, it can't be overstated. This was really important in this relief bill, and it's a huge victory that the Teamsters won.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just when I was watching that, I was trying to like think of the people I know who have pensions, the people our age who have pensions, and obviously it's just teachers, you know.
Right.
But as
Yeah.
you say, like even that is a little dicey. But I really liked Ken's point that it's ridiculous and wasteful and just cruel to expect people to cobble together a retirement from, I think he used the phrase crazy quilt of like different plans and like
Right.
Social Security, which I think we talk about Social Security on literally every show. We obviously
somehow.
love Social Security. Yeah, somehow it comes up. We love Social Security, but obviously, as Ken pointed out, it's just not enough. And Bernie Sanders and other politicians have been trying to fix that. But we also hear that, hey, Social Security like might run out soon. So the
Which, by the
retirement
way,
future is a little apocalyptic.
And just for the record, I mean, a little off topic, but I mean, it's the easiest talking point to respond to the idea that Social Security is going to run out. All you need to do is raise the cap on taxable income very slightly, and Social Security is solvent. That really is all it takes.
Exactly. And I think Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, to her credit, have like pointed that out time and time again. And I know that Bernie wants to make Social Security like even more beefed up, which of course, I mean, we love Bernie. So
I call him Beefy Bernie,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that clip of him. I feel like every time there's a piece of good legislation, like a low key good legislation, like you kind of dig into it. And it's like, oh, there's Bernie.
Right. We could have had a bad one. We could have had a bad Bernie.
Yeah. Beefy Bernie. So I just want to remind everybody really quickly, we will have Lara Skinner, who is the director of the Worker Institute's Labor Leading on Climate at Cornell University. That's kind of a mouthful, but she will be on in a little bit to talk about just transition, to talk about the Green New Deal, and to talk about some New York specific projects that have to do with building a climate and labor coalition.